Welcome to another episode of the True Sweet Hide podcast. Thank you for being here. This is Annette, your host, and I have a very special guest today that is going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, only because I actually have friends that are raising special needs children, and I can understand the pain and not the pain per se, but just the challenges of trying to balance life. And not only is Amber Gale doing that, but she's a corporate professional, business owner, nonprofit founder, wife, mom, all the things. But she's also running this amazing website that you need to go to, and we'll mention that a little bit later. But oh my gosh, Amber, I'm just so happy that you reached out and you wanted to share your story, because I know there are moms out there, dads out there that need to hear this. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I went to your website and I was looking through it and I was like, wow. I mean, the amount of information on there. And then you have a separate one for you have Aaron and Amber's family, and then you have I'm sorry, more for caregivers.org, which is, God, we don't talk about that enough. So could you just give us your backstory on how you are doing all of this and how you find the time?
Time is a mystery, that's for sure. Backstory. I have two children. My daughter Avery is 11. She is 100% exactly like me, with more confidence and more sarcasm. So, that could be for better or for worse, depending on which mood it is and which day it is and how many chores I'm trying to get her to do. And I have a son. So we tried for a number of years, struggled with infertility, to have a second child. 5 years later, we finally had our son, AJ. To our knowledge, throughout pregnancy, everything was normal. We did not expect anything to be any different until he was born. And the first thing that they did was send in the pediatrician, which I thought was strange because they did not do that with Avery. And she had come in and said, I'm here because they suspect he has Down syndrome. And I went through the whole process of denial, and he does not have Down syndrome. He looks just fine. And they would point out all the features and be like, oh, he has small ears. And I'm like, no, my husband has small ears too. That doesn't mean anything. And he has almond shaped eyes. I'm like, well, he just squished his face through, his eyes are supposed to be weird. Babies look weird. His eyes are fine. He has a gap between his toes. So do I. I went through all of the things and all of the denial pieces there. But at the end of the day, we decided, at this point, he's a baby, he needs fed, he needs changed. We can do that. Cool. Just leave the room. We'll be all right. And then she'd left the room, and a few minutes later I was breastfeeding him and he turned Smurf blue, Pepsi can blue, blue, you should never see a baby, a human, anybody ever that shade of blue. And panic ensues, and my mom's running into the hallway. I'm pushing the call button. By the time the nurses came back in, he'd been back to normal mostly, and he was just not 100% there though. So at that point, that was the last time that I have ever held him without some sort of a wire or tube attached. Even to this day, he still has a trach, he has oxygen. He ultimately had to go through 2 open heart surgeries. The first one was around 2 weeks old. We had to fly from Iowa to Philadelphia. So everything just, my entire life really flipped upside down when he was born. Prior to that, I had been, and I still am very, very into my corporate career, very much into keeping things organized. I'm a project planner by nature, so everything has to have its place and its time and when it needs to be done. And then when he came along, not so much anymore. It was everything's on his time and on his terms. So things changed a lot with him. And I think that's where my story kind of gets into those, more difficult and ugly, not necessarily ugly, but not unspoken truths, in terms of, wishing things were different and grieving the loss of a child you still have, because you expect, one thing for your kid the whole time you're pregnant. You're dreaming of all the things, and you find out you're having a boy, and it's like, oh, he's going to play catch in the yard with his dad by the time he's 5 years old. No, he's not. Trying to like navigate all of those different feelings and those changes, and ultimately dealing with a pretty hefty depression as a result, as we were going back and forth and still living in hospitals. So, that's kind of backstory of who I am in terms of, my kid and how that's changed me a little bit. I feel like I've just now talked like a mile a minute and a lot of words at you to kind of fill that piece in. But that's a lot of the backstory of who I am. In terms of kind of how like that shifted around and how I find time for some of the other things in life. Ultimately, while I was battling a lot of the depressive, states, one of the things that I did was I went with a friend to support her going to a women's conference, a business conference. And I remember sitting in the audience and being there and being around all of these people and feeling like, this strange disconnect of this was my life before and it's not anymore. And then also realizing that it's also a large part of what was missing was that connection, that drive, that, investment in myself, in learning how I operate and learning how to manage things better. And so ultimately that led me to start working with a life coach. I met my life coach while I was there. I consider her to be like the greatest, blessing that I have had in terms of, turning my attitude and my perspective, more my perspective than anything around on everything. And I thought I wanted to be a life coach. Spoiler alert, I am not a life coach. I am not supposed to be a life coach. I did try to be a coach for a short period of time. I put together a course, a 6-week time management course for parents of special needs children. And although it was well received, I learned very quickly that I am a type A person and I am not very good at like coaching other people into the right direction to find them answers themselves, which is what we really truly need. Like what I need is somebody to help me find the answer myself, because if you tell me the answer, fine, I can do it, but I'm not going to learn anything. I need, and that's what a lot of coaching really is people kind of helping you work through it, finding the answers yourself. And I struggled with it. So I pulled back out of that. And in talking with my coach, the conversation became, well, what can you do to, with your skill set to really still provide this service, this, meet this need that we know is out there. And that's where launching the nonprofit came in. And that's where More for Caregivers came in. So I launched that. Actually, it launches officially on August 1st. So we've been in pilot for 3 or 4 months, but essentially what that is trying to provide some of those coaching services to parents of special needs children, as well as other personal development services as well.
Wow.
That's a lot.
So here you are today, and you have found the strength to help other people along with trying to raise your own kids. I mean, how are you able to find that strength to keep showing up?
Honestly, I think knowing that I'm helping is really what gets me through. So when AJ was born, the first thing we did is you Google search it. They tell you not to. You Google search diagnoses and you Google search defined prognoses, and you look for other people that went through the same things. And we found nobody. The only thing we ever found were like medical journals, which at the time were very overwhelming. 5 years now into having a medical kid, they're not overwhelming anymore, and I can kind of read through them pretty quickly. But at the time he was born, there was nothing, and it was just all doom and gloom and everything. Like there was a 5% chance that he would survive his first surgery, and the hospital that we were at told us that they weren't even willing to do it because even if he did survive, they didn't think he'd recover. It was just full of, roadblocks after roadblocks and no hope. And so that's why, like, I had originally started blogging and just sharing our story and putting it out there, because if somebody else, ever came along with the same mix of things and needed to see it, it would be there. And, you know, that's what really got me through. And you know, you get a little pushback from people who are like, you put a lot of your life on the internet. And to that, I say, good, because, you know, people need that. Like, I needed that, and it wasn't there when I needed it. And I really wanted to make sure that his story was out there, that that information could be found. And since he's been born, I found a couple other families that are older than mine, and some that are now that have reached out to me that have said that they found me through my blog or through our Facebook page, just with AJ's story. And being able to not only provide that hope, but then to have that community to actually talk about something that's a very rare kind of combination of diagnoses and relate to other people. And, you know, we put out content, and my daughter is involved in that. Like, we did a video of her doing a G-tube change to try to make it, you know, if an 11-year-old can change a G-tube on her squirming 4-year-old little brother, then I think you, as a 30-some-year-old woman, can manage it on an infant. Like, you know, trying to like take some of that fear out and support people. That's what, you know, really drives me in the first place. So I think those pieces are easy for me. Like, finding the time to share, that's easy. That's my normal everyday life. Like, that's what I want to do. That's what fuels my fire. I think trying to find the balance for the things that, you know, you have to do is a little harder for most of us.
I love everything that you said, especially with the putting yourself out there. It's so difficult sometimes to not get that feedback that you were thinking you were going to get, or just being vulnerable. People don't understand how difficult it is to say, here's my story, yeah, I'm just going to launch it and now the world's going to read about it. And then you get people who are like, why are you doing that? But like you said, you are helping other people, and it's almost like almost like your own self-healing journey, maybe just putting it out there so that you can go through it, and then helping other people through it. And I think it's so, I've been finding that it's so courageous to do that, because it is not easy. You are going to get people that are not going to agree with you. And you have to, I think we have to stand up for ourselves and just be firm and be like, you don't really have to explain to anybody why you're doing it. You're doing it, and it's your story. And so I thank you for even making that step, because I can understand it could be difficult. And then I think the other amazing thing is involving your daughter. That's so huge, so that she could be a part of this process. And it's still her brother. He just needs some things. And I think it's amazing that you're raising her to be like that, because it's not easy out there. And I don't know, that's just so great. So you're explaining all these things you have to do. Where do you find your own self-care?
Oh, always a challenge. No, actually, I schedule. I am an avid scheduler. I think I mentioned already, you know, I did run a scheduling course for moms, because I have always been somebody who takes on a lot, but yet I really understand the value. Now, I went through a period when I had AJ where I did not. I went through a period when I had AJ where I did nothing for myself, where I, you know, was in fight or flight mode all the time, survival mode, trying to, you know, get through all of the things. And it took some serious work to get back to the idea that I still need to schedule my life, even if I'm not leaving my house. You know, so we locked down, you know, and a lot of us can relate to that too, with the, you know, pandemic and the craziness going on. Is even when you're not leaving your house, you still need to have some, you know, semblance of a schedule. It doesn't have to be routine. I know some people hate that word, but you do have to have some semblance of a schedule to make sure you actually get things done. Because if you don't plan to do them and they just sit there on a to-do list, you won't get them done. So I do a lot of time blocking. I focus very heavily on blocking off time specifically for certain activities. And if you look at my calendar, most people think I'm crazy because it doesn't look like there's any free time in there. But the reality is I actually schedule my free time. So I have my calendar, fully booked out from morning to night. I have blocks on there where I'm participating in Zoom calls with friends, or once a week I have a phone call with somebody. I I try to schedule my Facebook time. That one doesn't really work so well, but I try. Um, that's still a distraction, no matter who you are or how good you are at time management or not. But that's the big thing, is I plan it all. If I know we have, a need to get, something done, whether that's, a home renovation project or the lawn needs mowed, that's on the calendar. If it doesn't get there, it doesn't get done for our family, especially the more we take on.
I love hearing that. I've just started to get into a routine of scheduling, not just on my phone, but in an actual planner. And it's so hard. It's challenging, but I find that once I set up the computer and I have it, then I can look at it instead of, because once I get on the phone, you get distracted and you start looking at other things. I think I need to take Facebook off my phone. But God, I really need to take a class from you on time on the scheduling part. But I think that I've been, the more people I talk to, the more I'm starting to realize that, yeah, you have to, time blocking is essential. Like, you have to schedule out certain days, certain times. Otherwise, you're going to be doing things all day, every single day, and not get to your end goal because you're so worried about doing the other stuff. But yeah, that's oh my gosh, I need to
Yeah.
keep that mental note.
I do most of mine in a bullet journal, for planning, because I'm also a very creative person. I like to have, arts and crafts time and things like that. And I used to scrapbook and do a lot of that. And I still do a little bit occasionally, but what it's turned into more for me is kind of creative bullet journaling. So I do my daily schedule down to the half an hour, sometimes 15 minutes, usually half an hour, in a bullet journal. And then I can decorate it. I can color it. I can plan it. I can put fun quotes around it. I can do hand lettering, whatever it is, that I feel in the mood to do. I can use, washi tapes. I can, whatever it is. I just really like the opportunity to be creative. And then when I can do that around my schedule, it also helps me kind of, really soak in what is happening in that time frame. So I can, next week we're launching the nonprofit. So I have all kinds of things on my planner about, the nonprofit and the launch, and, positivity around, it's going to go great, and, things like that to help set that right mindset. And that definitely has become self-care time, which sounds crazy to somebody that isn't really kind of into planning, but I spend time with my calendar every Sunday, at least an hour, going through it, decorating it, setting it up, writing it out. And that really sets the stage for me for, the whole week coming.
I love that. I love hearing that because, like I said, I just started getting in this planner mode, and I've discovered Erin Condren, and that's a whole other topic. And I've been trying to research bullet journaling and the decoration, but I can understand when you're talking about that could be a form of self-care because you get to have you time, and you get to, if you want to use washi tape or markers, it's just, there's something about it, and I'm starting to learn that. And so it is kind of relaxing. People might not think it is, but it actually kind of is if you take that Sunday and you go through your thing, because it does set the tone. It really does. And I never really thought about it that way until I'm, started doing more research. So I'm so glad I'm not the only one. Thank you for saying that, because I think everybody needs to do it. Get some stickers and get some markers and start going through your calendar and make it fun, because it doesn't have to be all gloom and doom.
No. My daughter, actually, I actually mentioned she's 11, but she loves, like, she'll sit down and do her planner at the same time. Now, her planner does not have nearly the information in it that mine does. I don't know, that might change a little bit this year with the way schooling is looking, but
Yeah.
Largely, hers doesn't have nearly as much in it as mine does, but she still has fun with it. And we do things like set up trackers and So she'll track her mood and track her habits and things like that. And it's just a really nice, place to know you can go and check in and see what's going on. And if you've got a thought, it's always this, with a bullet journal and a lot of planners too, it's always the same place. So all of your like random scattered, thought processes are actually combined into one spot, and you can find them when you need them.
Oh my gosh. I really, really, really love the fact that you have your daughter involved with that, because she'll be 20 in next month. And I've been trying to tell her, write this stuff down, write it down, get a calendar, get a planner and write it down, because it helps you later on in life. And the fact that your daughter is getting into it is going to set the stage for her. So I love all that stuff. So I really want to talk about Aaron and Amber's family, the .com, the website. You have put so much work into that, and I love the fact that you have a separate pages for special needs parenting. You have making things like crafts and recipes, and that is like I need to favorite this. I need to bookmark it, because I think it's so amazing that you're giving families ideas and information and on more than just what's going on in your family. And it's so creative, it's so brave. But now I can see where you get it from, because you are this but I appreciate that you're sharing it with us, because I'm sitting here going, wow, like I have nephews that are, I think he's going to be 2 tomorrow, that I could pass this on to my own family to get ideas on doing stuff and just relating with the world. So did you do this all yourself? Because it's amazing.
Yeah, so that site was actually, it's been around since I was pregnant with my daughter. So it's, about 12 years old now, getting close to, if not past. If you go really far back, you'll find some really interesting posts. I decided I wasn't going to delete anything, because, it's who I was at the time. And it's not bad. It's just like, really, that's how my brain worked, 10 years ago, I guess. But it's just, there's a lot of older content on there, and then there's a lot of newer stuff. So it's actually kind of fun to look through for me, to go back through and just kind of see, like, because it's like a timeline of my life. So, even before we had AJ, we were sharing some of our journey with Avery. It was a little different. It was more of like, here's the fun crafts, here's the things that we do, here's the, the meals that we're making. And we still share some of that stuff too, like with AJ, and it's just a little bit different. So with AJ, some of those crafts and fun things are actually flashcards, that we use for him to help him with learning his letters and spelling out words, or printouts for trick-or-treating. So because he has a G-tube, he can't eat by mouth, but he still likes to go trick-or-treating, with everybody else. So we do reverse trick-or-treating with him. So we actually take treats to our neighbors that have a little card on them that say, I can't remember what the exact phrase is, but essentially saying, I like to reverse trick or treat because he can't eat. And it's kind of got like the sign language to teach people how to say thank you when they, get a treat from him. So, just putting that stuff out there so that other people can use it has just really been, therapeutic for us. Cause it's like, if I'm going to take the time to make it, and I'm going to take the time to do it for my kids, and I think it would benefit somebody else, I want to share it. And that's really what everything has been throughout, the whole 12-year history of that site has been, we did this, it was great, I feel like other people might want to, let's share it. Or we went through this, or I found this information, or really it's kind of, in some ways it's almost an online journal without all of the, private feelings that most people think of when you think of, writing Dear Diary and things like that. So, but it's grown over the years. Don't scroll back too far. No, you can. It's not that bad.
I can appreciate the fact that you were in a different mindset way back when, because I have a couple of those posts where my friends were questioning, like, do you want to keep that on there? And I said, you know what? Yep, I do, because that's what's gotten me through it. So I'm just going to leave it there. It's real. If you don't want to read it, then scroll to the present. But I think that's awesome that you kept it. Good for you. So tell us about the nonprofit now, because that's another thing that's
Yeah. Just one more. Um, so the nonprofit is called More for Caregivers, and kind of what that formed out of, and I mentioned a little bit, was my life coaching journey, where that's really what helped pull me out of the trenches of the craziness that was ensuing. And it's not that I don't have friends that would, try to help me along the way, because I do. But there's something to be said for when you become a special needs parent. Um, there's this tendency of people to start accepting your excuses. They don't want to question you because they've not been there, they've not walked in your shoes, and they're not going to push you. So for me, what that turned into was I did not leave my house. I did not leave the side of my child out of fear that something would go wrong, because there were times when I did, and he would pull his trach, he would code, whatever it would be, and I would come back to the insanity. And then there's a lot of guilt and fear that starts to get built up with that. And it got to the point where even once he was stable, I wasn't leaving home. And I was basically, living under a rock, refusing to go do things. People would invite me to things, and I'd always be like, I'd love to, but AJ. I hate to say that I used him as an excuse, but I did. At some point it became less about, him and more about me, and how I just didn't want to go out into public. I didn't want to face people. I didn't want to do things. And my friends wouldn't push me on it in a lot of cases because they didn't know. What I was saying to them seemed to be valid. And it took somebody else coming in from the outside who was, willing to, push that limit and say, but really, is that really true? Like, can you really not? And is there a reason that your friends can't come visit you, even if you're scared to leave your kid's side? What's really happening here, and really kind of pushing past it. And I did get some of that through therapy as well. So I can't give all the credit to life coaching. There's definitely a mix of the two. Therapy definitely helped me kind of process what happened, and the life coaching really helped me with what are we going to do next? So really those two things pushed together helped a lot. And that's where I really hit the realization that this is something that I think would be beneficial for a lot of, medical special needs parents, of any type, because we do occasionally, you lose yourself in the daily, grind of things. It becomes, and a lot of just moms in general can understand, it's stressful, incredibly stressful to be a parent in itself. You're responsible for another human being, and then you're throwing in all of these extra things. And I actually, the joke has often been, well, the kids are alive at the end of the day, I did my job. But when you become a medical parent, that's not really a joke anymore. That's reality. Like, you really are trying to do that. And having somebody else come in and help you realize that you still need to take that time for you. What is on your plate? What needs to be shifted? What can we do? Where can we find a little more balance? What's important to you that you haven't picked up in a while? Remember, you used to paint every other week, and you haven't picked up a paintbrush for 4 years. You think maybe that might, be contributing to some of those feelings of, not knowing who you are, those types of things, and to really piece it together. So that's what my life coach really helped me with. I tried the idea of coaching, realized that I am not a coach. They didn't fit into my boxes, and my scheduling and my building blocks of where things go and how things work. So my coach pushed me to the idea of let's form a nonprofit then. Let's see if we can do what we can do to get other people to help. And I thought that was crazy, that there would not be coaches out there who would be willing to, for a reduced rate or for free, depending, whatever, do coaching sessions for these parents. And I found that to be an incredibly off statement too, because there are coaches out there who want to give back. There are coaches out there who have ties to the special needs community and really want, to see something like this succeed, and are willing to put some work in for it. So right now I've got 3 coaches, and we're working on, growing up to more as we launch. And I think we're up to 48 members for those 3 coaches. Now they're not all getting services, obviously. So we're working on kind of growing things through, but the end goal was let's get something put together that really helps parents focus on themselves, to find, even if, at first it's meeting with this life coach and it's an hour a week for a month, and then an hour every other week for 2 months. And that gives you a good foundation of, who am I? What am I working on? What kind of services would really be right for me? Should I keep working one-on-one with somebody? Should I look at doing a group coaching? Do I need the peer support? Should I, maybe look at going to some workshops on some specific things, whatever it might be. So we try to, our mission is to get you kind of start you with that life coaching, and then figure out from there, what would be best for you. So, there's tons of services for our kids, but not very many people ask the parents, like, hey, what do you need? What do you need to work on? What can we do to support you? And that's really what our mission is to focus on that parent and make sure that you're getting the attention and the things that you need as well.
That is such a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh. That's amazing, because you're right. Nobody asks the parents. And you're in the background doing all this work, and no one knows when you're going to break or if you need a break. It's like, wow, I'm so excited for you. I'm just, that's such a blessing to so many people. What advice would you give to a special needs parent who doesn't know what to do? It's just getting day to day, just living each day without thinking about it.
Yeah, I think there's a few different things. The big one is, if you're feeling alone, know that you're not. There are other people out there. They may not be walking the exact same path as you. But what, we've really found is that, a cancer mom can learn a lot from a heart mom. It can learn a lot from, Down syndrome parent. They all really relate in some ways. You're not alone. There's a lot of groups out there that already exist, even on Facebook, where you can go find your peers and talk to them. But, more importantly, on top of that, once you kind of get past that idea of you're not alone, and that's not necessarily the struggle anymore. And it's more, at that point, you can't take care of your kid if you're not taking care of yourself. You always feel like you're doing everything that you should for your family, and that your family should be happy for you because you're working so hard on all of the things that they need and taking care of them. But at the end of the day, your family is going to be happier when you're happy too. So take that time for you. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, because, if you hit that point of burnout where you can't function anymore, you're not very much good to your family at that point at all either. So that's the big one. Take time for you. Figure out what it is that makes you happy and spend some time on it. And don't feel guilty or selfish, because it is not selfish to take care of yourself.
That is so true. And I think just being able to learn how to communicate those feelings, because I know sometimes when we're going through it, we don't want to ask for help. We don't know how to ask for help. We don't want to be judged. So we're like, we're fine. I got it. Mm-hmm. When really we should be saying, no, I don't. I'm having a hard time. I need help. Can somebody please come clean the house? Can somebody please, just whatever the case is. I know that just with my own mental health stuff, I never knew how to say I'm not okay.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an easy thing to learn, and it was really hard for me. I need help and I'm not okay are like the two biggest phrases that I had to practice. I think I literally stood in front of the mirror one day, because that was my homework from my coach had been, you need to learn how to say these things. So I want you to stand in the mirror and talk to yourself for 5 minutes and just say those two things over and over and over again. Okay. And it did. It kind of helped kind of like break some of that, like, those words aren't words that I know how to say feeling.
It is so hard. We're so used to just trying to be the strong one. There's no way I'm going to say that I'm not. Oh my God. Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you're talking about all of this, because it needs to be talked about more. There's so much educating that needs to be done in the world with all of this. And I know I've learned a ton today, and I'm just so grateful that you're doing what you're doing and for raising the kids the way that you're doing it, because it's it's beautiful. So thank you so much for being on here. And I think everybody needs to go find you. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So aaronandambersfamily.com, which is literally, I think, the longest website URL in the world. But I've had it for so long, I'm not changing it. That's where my family blog is. That's where all of my advocacy pieces are. And then moreforcaregivers.org is where I have all of our nonprofit pieces for the life coaching for special needs parents and all of that.
That's wonderful. I wish you all the success with that nonprofit. I know you're going to keep changing lives. And again, I appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for putting together a podcast where people have the platform to tell their story like that. It's super important, and appreciate
Thank you so much. I love having people like you on here. Thank you again. I wish you all the best.
Thanks.
All we need is a little understanding. Walk a mile in their shoes. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life.
Thank you for listening to the Truth We Hide podcast, created and founded by your host, Annette, the founder of A Wild Ride Called Life. Also, a big thank you to all of our sponsors for each and every episode that is aired. We have so much support from them and all of our listeners. You can find more information at www.awildridecalledlife.com.